Welcome to Cohn Zone Live. We're the Cohns. Grant and Lowell, thanks for coming today. The Niners season is over, but the playoffs are going on, and there are lessons that the Niners can learn from these games, especially the ones we just saw a few days ago. So, Dad, let's talk about those games. I know when you watch playoff games, it brings out the juices, and you want to work again. And you were thinking, how would I handle this? Now you don't just watch it as a fan. It's like, how would I do this if I were working?
Yeah, because we're journalists, I'm a retired journalist. You never really watch it. You lose that. You don't watch as a fan anymore. I don't root any of that. But I watched with great fascination the NFC game between Tampa and
New Orleans.
Brees, and Brees. And what I thought was, if I were in the press box, I want to explain, and Iggy, you can help me with this.
Yes.
When you're watching a game and you know that when it's over, you're going to do your interviews and then you have to write on deadline. You have a few hours to do it. You don't watch the game just watching. You watch the game thinking what I'm going to write.
Of course.
And you're constantly, it must be like playing poker or chess. You're constantly getting an idea. What's my angle? Rejecting it, moving on because the game changes.
Yes.
And it's actually exhausting.
You don't start that process after the game. You're doing it throughout the game, and hopefully you can decide by the third quarter at the latest. But a lot of times it comes down to the end.
Right. If you wait till after the game, you're screwed.
Screwed, especially if it's a night game.
Yeah, you're screwed. So what I did was I made a list, which I sent to Iggy.
Also, Dad, if you're working for a newspaper, you got to divvy up topics. There's a team.
You got to deal with the beat writer. What is he going to write about? And you don't want to duplicate. And if there's another columnist, you don't want to step on each other's toes, and it can become very territorial.
Like me, you, and Phil would do it every week, in usually the third or fourth quarter, and it was very professional and generous. But we would do that. What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay, we'll have to split up quotes. Can you get this quote for me? It's a team.
Absolutely. And I want to say Phil Barber at the Press Democrat was really wonderful to work with. I mean, he was generous. He was not competitive. Lowell, do you need this quote? Iggy, do you need this quote? Blah, blah, blah.
Because egos can get in there. You've had experience with that. I mean, everyone knows, like, I want this story. I'm going to write this. So it can be tough. It can be tough. So anyway.
Really competitive. So anyway, I was thinking, if I were in the press box dealing with other people and dealing with deadlines, what would be some of the topics from Tampa Bay, New Orleans? Because what a game. What a game. And what was at stake in those two quarterbacks? So here's off the top of my head. Iggy, you want to go through them one at a time and talk about them?
Absolutely. Why don't we start with the New Orleans side? Okay.
Well, my first topic, again, and this would be if I were writing for a New Orleans paper. Drew Brees needs to retire. That probably, if I were writing for what is it called? The Times-Picayune over there.
Yes.
My column would be Drew Brees needs to retire. It would be the truth.
Yeah.
And it would be a hard-hitting angle, and it would be relevant for New Orleans. Iggy, if you were writing a column and you were a New Orleans writer, what would you have written?
Yeah, that's the column. It's not big picture. Look at the Saints, another disappointment. You could let the beat writer do the Saints story. Brees' story transcends the 2020 Saints team. He's like the franchise there, and it's over for him. He's been hanging on a long time. You could probably argue that he's been done for a few years, that he's been, this limited for the last few years, and it's time for him to go and for the Saints to move on and get someone younger. Yeah, that's the story. And your first line could be Drew Brees needs to retire. It'd be a good first line.
Oh, that's what I would write. Yeah, that's very good. And I'm a boxing guy, and there is a certain point when boxers can't do it anymore, and you call that fighter, who might have been a great fighter, let's say Mike Tyson, you call him a shot fighter. At a certain point in his career, Tyson became a shot fighter. And so did Muhammad Ali, by the way. He became a shot fighter. Well, Brees is a shot quarterback. He's shot.
He can't move that well anymore. When he gets hit, he gets hurt. He can't protect himself. He doesn't have much of an arm. He can't get the ball down the field. When they needed to throw that one ball down the field, they took him out of the game and used Jameis Winston. That tells you a lot. So he's very limited. He's great. He was great. But, to tie this into the Niners, they're constantly looking for an upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo. And everyone would agree that Drew Brees is an upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo. And if the Niners are looking for potential Hall of Fame quarterbacks, they passed on Tom Brady last year. Should they be interested in Drew Brees this year if somehow he were available? Hell no.
Hell no. It would be foolish. Foolish.
Yeah, they missed. I mean, his window is done. His sell-by date is over. He needs to go retire and spend some time with his family, which is what I'm sure he wants to do, right?
I would rather have Jimmy Garoppolo than Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Right now.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. They're pretty much the same. Neither one can stay healthy. Neither one has a strong arm. It's just one guy's like 45 years older than the other. So, yeah, I would have to say though. All right.
Okay.
So that's a good column for that's a powerful column for the Saints. What if you're covering for Tampa?
Sure. Tom Brady is still great.
Yeah, I would have to say so.
Writing a column for a Tampa Tribune. I think it's the Tampa Tribune. My column would be the quarterback. Ira Miller said you can never go wrong writing about the quarterback. You know, a lot of we're going to get into Brady later in the Niners, but a lot of people said Brady was done. Ask New England if they think he's done.
Well, I think they thought he was done too, and they were wrong. They blamed him for a lot of their problems when really the problems were no offensive line, no receivers. They went 11-5 anyway with him in 2019. They lost in the playoffs. They didn't really offer him a competitive deal. They brought in Cam freaking Newton, who stinks, and missed the playoffs. Now Tom Brady goes to Tampa, who was, I think, 7-9. All of a sudden, he's great. They're great. It's really quite amazing. And, you know, Bruce Arians had a quote recently about why it worked in Tampa. They were asking him, and he goes, well, you know, New England never really let him be himself. I let him be himself. He wants to coach. I let him coach. That was an interesting quote.
We're going to get into that later when we talk about the Niners and Shanahan.
Sure.
Hold that thought.
So think about that.
If you were writing about the game and you were a Tampa writer, what would you have written? Column.
Tom Brady's the greatest thing that's ever happened to this franchise.
Yes.
I mean,
what a story.
What a story. He hasn't won the Super Bowl yet, but he's had an instant change effect on the franchise. And I think it's looking like he was the franchise in New England, much more than Bill Belichick. And now they brought that down to Tampa, and he's running the whole organization again. I mean, he could be the coach of the year in a sense. It's a great story.
You know, it's interesting. Great stories in the NFL this year. Brady, Alex Smith, two great stories.
Aaron Rodgers.
I love
Aaron Rodgers. Those are great stories as well. Josh Allen, the kid from Fireball. Great story.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, now the other game.
Hero of the game. If I were writing that for anything, if I were writing it national for USA Today, Chad Henne.
He was the great story. Because, you know, he didn't necessarily play well. He threw that interception. That was terrible. That was a Brian Hoyer pick. But with the game on the line, they put it in his hands. And he came through. And he's like freaking Brian Hoyer. Amazing. Hero of the game. Unlikely. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, what a story. If you were writing that you think Mahomes goes out, they're going to lose. This guy comes in. Now, he doesn't do anything great, but he preserves the game. I would love to write that story, and I would love to talk to him afterward and see was he excited? Did he take it in stride? I'd love to look at his body language and all of that. I would think, Iggy, if you were writing for USA Today, would that be your story, Chad Henne?
Absolutely. Yes. The unlikely hero, the guy who almost gave the game away with the interception. And then when it was game on the line, 4th down and 1 at near midfield, you'd think, well, it's your backup quarterback. We'll punt or we'll run. No, we're going to call a pass and he's going to make it. He's going to execute it. And he did. Like what I was thinking there, I think a lot of Niner fans that went through their head is like, dang, like Andy Reid has more confidence and trust in Chad Henne than Kyle Shanahan has on any of his quarterbacks.
Yeah.
He only called 8 passes in that NFC Championship game last year. Here's Andy Reid calling a pass with the game on the line for his backup quarterback. What an aggressive, confident coach. There's one other thing I would think.
What a wonderful coach. Another column could be Andy Reid and having the confidence in Henne, although you could combine them in one column.
Right, because Chad Henne's like 40. He's been around forever. He's an old, and for whatever reason, Andy Reid has stuck with him as his backup, and it worked out. And he had trust in him, not just to like run the scout team in practice, but to actually win a game with his arm. I thought it was just amazing. So cool story, Chad Henne.
And again, people who are watching, this is how you think in the press box.
Yes.
It's an embarrassment of riches, and you have to choose on the spot.
The Chad Henne story is just fantastic to write. Yes.
Okay, another one would be to predict the Tampa versus the Packers. But we're going to do that later.
Real quick, though, again, with the Chad Henne thing, what I like so much about it is you don't have to overwrite it. You don't have to say he's the greatest quarterback in the world. It's the greatest accomplishment of all time. It can be he's not good, and everyone knows it, but he came through. I just love that story. It's a lot of fun. It would be fun.
He's a smaller version of Nick Foles.
Right. Nick Foles, and you know how sports writers have a tendency to overwrite things. It was the greatest play. Yeah. It was the greatest moment. And because I'm writing about it, it's going to be the greatest. It's like, no, it was just Chad Henne had this very unexpected, memorable, historic moment that he'll have the rest of his life. And we'll always remember the Chad Henne day. Doesn't mean he's great. Doesn't mean he could do it next week, but he did it this time.
Writing tips. If you're going to do this at home, young writers.
Yes.
The Cohns, who are pretty good writers, feel you should always understate as opposed to overstate.
Right.
Overstate, and I know a lot of writers who do it.
You don't want to do it. Show, don't tell, don't overstate, be understated. Right. Okay, let's move on.
Let it speak for itself.
All right.
Another one, if you're writing for a Tampa paper.
Uh-huh.
How did Tampa emerge as such a power? All of a sudden, Iggy, I may have to stand up because my sciatica is killing me. Now you're going to see I'm wearing shorts, everybody. Oh, you can't see
wearing shorts.
Iggy, I'm sorry, but guys and girls, men and
do what you got to do. We appreciate that you're doing this sciatica. I don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo would do this podcast if he had sciatica. He might be out for 7 weeks.
Stop talking. I'm talking. I have philosophical things to say about sciatica.
Okay.
That are very deep at the end of this.
Okay.
Will you remember?
Yeah.
I want to talk. Okay. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm standing up here.
He's standing.
Okay. So another one, how do you do it? You're better than I am. How did Tampa emerge as such a power?
Well, okay. A few ways. First, they were very bad for a long time. And in the NFL, if you're bad for a long time and you're not terrible at drafting, you'll end up with a bunch of good players on your offensive line, on your defensive line, all over. So they were bad. They had Jameis Winston. They were continuously underachieving. And then all of a sudden, when the Hall of Fame quarterback presented himself on the market and said, I'm interested in playing for you, they didn't pull the 49ers mistake and said, no, we're okay. We're going to give our guy one more shot because he's younger. They didn't do that. They had this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and everyone understood, we're going to make this work. If he wants to coach the team, let him. If he wants to bring in Rob Gronkowski and Antonio Brown, let him. It's a blessing to have Tom Brady. And they just, went through the door when it opened. They didn't miss their window of opportunity. They had good timing.
Iggy, greatest short novela that any American ever wrote, Seize the Day by Saul Bellow.
Yes.
They seized the day.
That's what they did. That's what they did. And the Niners balked. They're like, maybe we'll do something similar next year. No, you don't get that opportunity every year.
Okay, now we move. It's a very good segue into the main event of this topic. And I have it written down here. What would Brady have meant to the 49ers?
Hold on, let me write it down so we get the ticker.
With ticker? Okay. I want to start. You tell me when I could start.
You can start.
Okay. To me, I thought, well, if they got Brady, it would have made it would have been a whole different season for them. But I went yesterday to Safeway in our neighborhood in Oakland, and the guy who's in charge of the meat market, Francis Barry, who is a dear friend of Iggy and me. We've known him forever. Francis. And he really knows sports. So I want to say, we call him the butcher, but it's not Tom Sula. First of all, he's a better butcher.
Way better.
Tom Sula, and probably a better football coach. If you're watching, Francis, we love you.
Yes.
So I said to Francis, it would have made all the difference to the Niners. And Francis, we were over by the chicken parts and the sausages at Safeway. And he goes, not so fast, Lowell, not so fast. He said that offensive line would have got Brady killed, and it's just as well that he didn't go there. Francis, Iggy's going to rebut you, but he loves you and in a very gentle way.
Well, all I want to say with Francis is right on. That's what most 49er fans would say. And I think I get what he's coming from. The Niners had the worst offensive line in the league. They gave up 78 quarterback hits. It was the most. They got 2 quarterbacks hurt. All I'm saying is Tom Brady, you don't think of him as being able to protect himself because he's a statue, but he's been protecting himself his entire career. He got hurt the one time with the knee injury, but since then he's never missed a game to injury. No one moves better in the pocket than Brady, Dad. He's got those. He can always make those 2 little steps that gives him enough space to make the throw. He also is extremely decisive, a concept that Shanahan and Saleh talk about with Garoppolo. meaning he's not. Garoppolo drops back and stands there flat-footed and seems confused. Brady always knows where he needs to go, usually, and he gets that before the snap. The ball comes out quickly, and then finally, his offensive line wasn't that good in Tampa. His right tackle's great. The Niners' left tackle's great. Brady's left tackle is a guy named Donovan Smith, who's worse than Mike McGlinchey. He's really, really bad. And Brady didn't miss a game. He got hit a lot. He took some big hits, but he's a big guy, and he made it through he's never won fewer than 9 games in a season, Dad. He's just a machine. So to just assume that he would come here and miss games, history doesn't suggest that.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Can we agree that the Niners would have been a better team this year with Brady as opposed to Garoppolo and the other guys?
I think we'd have to. I think everyone can agree on that. I mean, Garoppolo isn't even that good, and he couldn't stay healthy. Brady would have been a big upgrade.
Okay, so we're going to get to the nut now, to the crux of the issue. There are one of 2 reasons, and we don't know the reasons, but we're speculating that the Niners didn't take Brady. One is a fair reason. They didn't think he'd be much of an upgrade over Garoppolo.
A lot of people felt that. A lot of people felt that.
Wrong, but it's a football decision,
right?
And you can respect that. But we would disagree with it. But Iggy, there's a more sinister reason that we speculate on. Would you say what it is?
Yeah, and it comes back to what I said earlier about Bruce Arians. He said, "Look, I let him coach the team. I bet sometimes." And if people have been watching us for a while, they'll remember that we actually said it made sense that Brady would go to Tampa because a brilliant quarterback like him, who's 43, who's seen everything, wants to run the team like Peyton Manning used to, and an older coach can set his ego aside and say, you know what, my scheme doesn't have to be the star. I don't have to be the star. You be the star. I just want to win a Super Bowl. An older man can do that. A younger man has a tougher time doing that because if he wins while ceding everything to the quarterback, he feels diminished. It's like I have to prove that my scheme works. I have to prove that I am a superstar. And that leads you to saying, gee, Tom, I can't turn the reins over to you because Tom Brady's 2 years older than Kyle Shanahan. Tom Brady wants to run things his own way. And you know what? Tom Brady's way works. So what Bruce Arians said is, you know what? I learn. I watch. Go ahead. That's the way to do it.
Okay. So Iggy, if this theory is cogent, what does it tell us about Kyle Shanahan? One, it tells us 2 things. He's so arrogant. He doesn't want the input from a football genius,
right?
A Hall of Fame quarterback who will be a Hall of Fame quarterback like Tom Brady. But it's the other side of the coin goes with arrogance is insecurity.
Right. He's
insecure to let this great quarterback take over because he might call in a play and Brady will say,
no,
I'm not doing that play. It's
right.
The wrong play. Or they may be in meetings and he says something and Brady says, you know what?
I don't like that.
I don't like it. And I'll tell you why. Now, I think Arians can handle that. Could Bill Walsh have handled that? Iggy, I don't know.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know if he could handle that.
Right.
But clearly, if our second theory is right, and it's just a theory, clearly Shanahan can't handle it. And because of his personality limitations, he had a crummy season because he could have had Tom Brady.
Well, what Arians is saying is that New England couldn't handle it either. What he said is New England didn't let him be himself, which is basically like Belichick telling Tom what to do. Belichick telling the 43-year-old greatest quarterback of his era who's seen everything, no, we're going to do it this way. And Arians saying is like, he's the best. I know a lot. He knows more. I'm going to let him do his thing. And it's amazing how many coaches in the NFL would want to compete with Tom Brady. Tom Brady. Why? I mean, people let Peyton Manning have full reign. Now it's Tom Brady's turn, and he's doing a good job.
And I think maybe when Kyle is older, he'll be able to step back a little bit. But he didn't again, this is just a speculation. But he didn't, if we're right, he didn't step back now, and he paid the price.
And again, it's because he didn't want to change his offense that much. He might have not been able to call as many bootlegs. He might have had to turn over play calling duties to his quarterback. He didn't want to do that. Look at a guy like Andy Reid, though. Much older, sees a guy Patrick Mahomes, who teams are passing in the draft because he played in a spread system in college. Kyle didn't want him. Kyle has an old school under center offense, and I guess he felt Mahomes wouldn't fit it. Well, Andy Reid, he has a West Coast offense background. He saw that guy and was like, okay, well, we'll just run what he knows. We'll go spread. It'll work. And he was right. He adjusted his offense to fit this kid, and he won a Super Bowl. So that's what you have to do.
My final word on Shanahan and Brady is Shanahan wanted to be the star, and he didn't want Brady to be the star.
So what you got was 6-10.
Yeah, 6-10 and 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, you could have been 11-5 in the NFC Championship game. You wouldn't have been the star. You would have had to actually take a back seat, a supporting actor role to your quarterback. But now you're in year 5, coming off your 3rd losing season in 4 years, and you're still trying to find a quarterback that you can take credit for. Good luck.
I want to say one other thing, and this is partly about how much I love to do this stuff with you, Iggy. We're talking about football, but also we're talking about personalities.
Yes.
How personalities affect the game.
Right.
So we're at a much deeper level than, is it a good right tackle? You know what I mean?
A lot of sports writers and fans don't want to go to that level. They just want to say, how dare you project those things onto Kyle Shanahan, and he must have had his football reasons, and he would never let something like that happen. These things happen every day in the NFL.
Oh, every day.
Every day. It's all about egos and insecurity. And I guess some guys either have been in the league long enough and feel like they're secure enough that they can take a back seat. And other guys on the way up feel they just can't. I can't take a back seat. It'll make me somehow be, I don't know what the word is. Obsolete.
Or diminished.
Diminished, yeah.
And the goal is to win the Super Bowl, not to be the superstar.
Right. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's lost 2 Super Bowls because he needed to be the superstar. He couldn't just run the ball out in the second half and win the game.
Right.
He needed to keep going for it and run the score up and call passes. Well, Bruce Arians hasn't won a Super Bowl either, but he's got a chance this year, and Kyle doesn't. And as long as he's got Jimmy Garoppolo making all this money and he doesn't decide what he wants to do it, they don't even have their quarterback, Dad. They're a ways away. Too bad Tom Brady isn't a free agent. They could have used him. Don't get Drew Brees, though.
Okay, what's our next topic?
What's our next topic? We got a question from 303 Clutch. With Nick Caserio's history with New England, is it possible that the Texans might want to pursue Garoppolo and the Niners could get Watson? Nick Caserio just got hired as the Texans GM. I don't think so. What I think, my prediction, Dad, is that I think the Patriots still want Jimmy Garoppolo, and the Niners are going to end up trading him back there. Do you think that's crazy?
No, I think it makes a lot of sense.
The rumor I heard is they wanted him last year and offered a first, so I think they'd probably offer maybe a second or third this year. The Niners would say, great.
Take it.
Thank you.
May I say something about DeShaun Watson?
Please do.
I tweeted about it this week, but I want to elaborate on it. From what I understand, he's very unhappy in Houston because the owner said he would have input on who the general manager and the coach would be. And I wrote a tweet saying, I never heard of a player having that kind of influence and input. And a lot of people were angry at me and said, but the owner had promised him that. Fair enough. Mm-hmm. If the owner promised it, he should have followed through. My point was, why would you even promise that?
Right.
This is a team game. How all of a sudden does the quarterback, as good as he is, but he's a quarterback who's won nothing. How all of a sudden does the quarterback get into management? I mean, that's a clear conflict of interest, and it's giving him too much power, and it's separating him from the people in the locker room. So the owner was a knucklehead to offer it. I can tell you something. Years and years ago, Magic Johnson, who obviously was one of the greatest players who ever lived, and I guess was a nice man. I mean, I don't know him. He got Paul Westhead fired as the coach of the Lakers. Now, I know Westhead. He's a really nice man. And Iggy, a few days later, I was in Al Addle's office. Now, everybody understands Al Addle is a all-time great guy. And we were chatting, and he just shaking his head, and he said, Lowell, that young man in Los Angeles just got a good coach fired. He said, I don't understand that. How does that happen? Now, he's talking about Magic Johnson. I mean, he's a young man, right? He said a player gets a coach fired. He said it's like the league is standing on its head. He was appalled 30 years ago. I'm appalled by this. I'm not angry at DeShaun Watson, although I think he's got a hell of a nerve. I'm angry at the owner who's such a schmuck. You never give a player that power.
Okay, just a sec. These are the owners that said the inmates can't run the asylum. So it's interesting that it's happening here because these are like the most, they're not exactly trying to empower players on Houston. And from afar, I see what you're saying. Watson seems way out of line. Like, why would you even ask to have input on these things? On the other hand, when you really look at what's happening with the Houston Texans, they're the worst organization in the NFL right now. It's agreed. They hired this guy named Jack Easterby last year. I don't think you know who he is. He's the executive vice president of football operations. Apparently, there's a whole long expose that came out this week that he has a habit of making people in the organization take his hand and pray for enlightenment. Like it's a I don't really appreciate that Deshaun Watson is going on Twitter and kind of like saying he's mad. He should just request a trade behind closed doors. I think that's fair. Players are allowed to request a trade. And if he feels that the Texans are an incompetent organization, get the hell out. So if he requests a trade, I think I'm okay with that. I wouldn't want to be working for a guy who made me hold his hand and pray for enlightenment. That's a deal breaker. No, I'm not holding your hand.
I didn't know that. You know, that's interesting. So another interpretation would be he's trying to become such a pest that they want to get rid of him.
And look, do what you got to do because he's such a good player. I think they almost can't trade him. So he might have to do what James Harden did. And you know what, dude, go ahead. If it's that bad of an organization and you have to hold the guy's hand and pray for enlightenment, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time. I think if we were covering this team, we might have a more informed opinion of what Deshaun Watson's doing.
Iggy, is he a top 5 quarterback?
Borderline. Yeah, pretty much.
Sure.
This, Josh Dubow? Of course you know Josh Dubow.
No, I never met him.
He watches everyone who doesn't know Josh Dubow. He covers the 49ers and the Raiders for AP, and he turned me on to this thing called Sys Data Hub. It's just this advanced stats website, and for whatever it's worth, they ranked him the number 1 quarterback in the league last year, 2020. Just one site. So he's very, very good. The fact that they went 4-12 with him is kind of amazing. And if the Jets could get him, I'm sure they'd be real happy. The thing is, he wanted the Texans to interview Robert Saleh. They wouldn't even bring him in for an interview. They should have interviewed Robert Saleh.
But again, it's not his business.
No, it's not. No, the thing that gives him a leg to stand on is the enlightenment guy. That guy, scary. Mr. Enlightenment. Enlightenment.
When Mark Jackson was the coach of the Warriors, he was always talking about God. I mean, you'd go into a post-game press conference, and all of a sudden you're talking about God. And I just want to know, like, what happened on the pick and roll?
Yeah, like, why is God choosing your team? Why are you the chosen one?
Why your team? Why not the Lakers?
Yeah, why not the Lakers? Yeah. Anyway, I think we're out of topics, but we can take a couple questions if you have some.
Oh, we have more topics.
What do we got? We got predictos. We got predictos up the wazoo.
We got my sciatica.
Oh, we got sciatica.
The one key player on the Niners. Were you writing this down when I was dictating?
Oh, yeah, I got these all here. All right, so which one do you want to do first? Do you want to go predicto?
Oh, boy, that made me angry.
I'm sorry. I was keeping you on your toes. It was a test. You passed it.
I can't sit down.
You passed the test. You're right. You can't. You don't have a leg to stand on. All right, what do you want to do? Predicto?
El Predicto. Okay.
Okay. We'll go NFC first.
Okay. Well, no, I'm going to do I want to be in charge here.
Okay.
We're going to predict the 2 games.
All right.
He's picking the 2 home teams. I'm picking the 2 road teams.
Okay.
Let's be real clear on this.
All right.
I'm picking underdog. He's picking overdog.
Overdog. Okay.
So NFC?
Yeah, NFC.
Okay.
Why are you going Tampa?
I'm going Tampa.
Why?
And the reason I'm going Tampa is I got 2 big reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady.
Yeah, he's good.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good. And you know what? As good as Green Bay is, didn't Tampa beat them already?
They just slaughtered them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You cannot discourage Tom Brady. You can discourage Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, you can. It's so true. Really true.
You can discourage him. Sometimes you see he checks out of a game.
He does. If he gets down early, it's like, you know what? We're not going to win this one. I'm not going to get hurt trying.
Yeah, I'll go make another crummy commercial.
Yeah, I'll say I played well and blame it on my teammates
Yeah.
or my coach.
Anyway, that's why I'm picking him. Who? Now you're picking the
I'm
overdogs.
picking Green Bay for a few reasons. First of all, games in Green Bay, it's going to be cold. Those Tampa guys, they're in the hot. They're not used to that cold. So that's one. But two. I mean, as great as Tom Brady is, I think Aaron Rodgers is probably better. There's more he can do. He can move. Brady can't. I think the difference in their career up to now is that Brady's been on a better team. Rodgers, that Mike McCarthy guy is just a freaking joke, as we see now in Dallas. The replacement, Matt LaFleur, nothing special. He's competent. And I think now with a competent coach who gives the guy a decent run game and a NFL caliber scheme, he's going to be the MVP of the league. I just think that his team is a little bit better than the Tampa team. And this year, I tweet about it a lot, but it's like, I think a big thing is not just how good your quarterback is, but how good he is per dollar. And Rodgers is like 2% cheaper than Tom Brady this year. And that allows the rest of the Packers to be a little bit better than the rest of the Bucs. So here's the thing. I picked the Bucs to go to the Super Bowl before the season. Now I'm picking the Packers to go this time. So I can be right either way.
I was just going to say you picked the Bucs, but
so I can be right either way now. That's
also picking the Bucs to go far before the season even started was really smart.
Well, thank
you. I want to give you full credit for that. One thing about you, Iggy, you know a lot about football.
I try to take unpopular opinions, which is tough because people yell at you. Like, for example, 3 years ago, I wrote a whole article saying the Niners should trade Jimmy Garoppolo right after his 5-game performance in 2017, trade him for 3 first-round picks and sign Kirk Cousins, which in retrospect was a pretty cool idea, considering the Niners are probably going to trade Jimmy for like a 3rd-round pick now. And the responses I got to that article were, this is why the Niners should take your press pass. This is why I'm unfollowing you on Twitter. You're the worst kind of writer. It's like, geez. So sometimes you got to put that out there and just be right.
And the other thing is the people who do that are fans. And fans are entitled. They have an emotional attachment to the team, which we don't have. Okay, next game, AFC.
Yes.
I'm going. May I talk?
Go for it.
I'm going the road team, the underdog, Buffalo. And here's why I'm going to go Buffalo. The main reason is Patrick Mahomes. Either he's not going to play, in which case Kansas City's going to lose, or he is going to play, but he'll be limited. And here's what I mean. He is a great thrower, but he also runs. There's that threat that he has.
Well, I don't touchdown last week.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to run him because he's coming off a concussion, if he even plays, and it's too risky. So I think his game will be limited. I also think that of all the teams of the 4 left, Buffalo's really sort of underrated. I mean, what an offense. What a quarterback. Now, he's not Patrick Mahomes, but what a quarterback. And they play good defense, too. Do you have another fly in your...
Yeah, he's always coming around here. There's a little fruit fly.
Every time
also, I see... What a wide receiver. That's Stephon Diggs, number 14. Probably the best addition any team made this year. The combination of him and Allen is pretty unstoppable. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So why is Kansas City going to win?
I still think that they have a better supporting cast around Mahomes than the Bills have given Allen, even though Mahomes seemed to have a soft head or what. I don't know if he doesn't play the game, they're going to lose. But if he does play the game, even with him not running, I still think he's got the best tight end in the league. He's got one of the best wide receivers in the league. He's got the best offensive coordinator, head coach in the league, that even just hanging in the pocket and throwing, he should be able to win, but not by much, by 3. I don't feel extremely confident about it. I think that he's got a better team. He has better receivers.
Okay. A follow-up question. Are you going to watch these games?
Absolutely, yes.
Do these games fascinate you?
Absolutely, yes. Yes. Because this is like, I don't know, it's not only the highest level of football, but it's like the highest level of game planning and scheming. And these are the type of strategies and openings and adjustments that every team is going to study all offseason. It's going to inform how the league evolves next year. It's going to be interesting.
I'd like to make a point. I knew you were going to answer that way.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I want to make a point about it. As a lot of you know, I went to Stanford. I did a PhD in English literature there. And it was hard. And I was with professors who were brilliant, and with a lot of my colleagues, students who were just much smarter and better read than I was. And I had to use every one of my gray cells to get through. It took me 6 years for a master's and a PhD. I really had to think hard. Well, when I think about football, Iggy, I use every bit of my ability.
Me too.
It's as challenging to me as reading a philosopher like Kierkegaard or the novels of Joseph Conrad and thinking about them. When I think about all the permutations in football and what is at stake in these games and what these brilliant coordinators, have to think, and then they think, but if I do this, he'll do this, then I do this, and all of that, it's as challenging as my PhD. And I got to tell you, on that level, as much as I love baseball and boxing, there is nothing like football.
Right, because you got to know Bill Walsh, and you felt like he was just as smart as you, right? In his own way, he's or smarter. Like you guys had nothing in common in terms of what you studied, but you would appreciate his attention to detail, his vision, his brilliance in his field. And you didn't expect a football coach to be like that, right?
Right. In fact, Iggy, when I knew him, I've learned a lot of football from you, and I wish I'd been able to ask him more I studied him as a character, but not his football. And you would have helped me with that. It turns out he was a very conservative play caller. I would have asked him about that, and I never did. But it's funny. I don't think he really wanted to talk football. He wanted to talk about himself
and boxing, and he wanted
and
you to be.
And that's what we had in common. Yeah.
But I've gotten to know Robert Saleh very well, and I've talked to him a lot about upcoming games and stuff off the record. Just what do you think is going to happen in this game? And the way I knew that he was going to be such a success eventually is that he could, like no one I've ever met, tell you exactly what's going to happen in a game. He can do it. I've never seen anyone do it. It's like, look, people think it's going to be a high-scoring game or this team's going to win. No, it's going to be a low-scoring game. This coordinator is going to do this. This coordinator is going to respond with this. Like, wow. Oh, my goodness. Like, it's what you can do with boxing, but with football, there's like 800 variables. And he's got this is going to do this, and this cornerback's going to take this guy out of the – he can do it. And it's like, well, if a guy can dupe out an entire game like that, he probably has the vision to run his own team. I'm just thinking.
So I want to come back to it, Iggy. You and I are probably what you'd call an intellectual. There's an intellectual component to football.
Yes.
That basketball, for example, doesn't even come close to. And I am endlessly fascinated by it. So now I have a question. We've named intellectual coaches. Saleh, Bill Walsh, intellectuals. I don't mean outside of football, but in that universe. Is Jim Harbaugh a football intellectual?
I think so. I think he spends most of his time thinking about football and thinking about the deep questions of football and thinking about football philosophy and what's the best way to coach a quarterback and what's the best way to build a team. Yes, absolutely. He's thought about the big questions in football his whole life, every day.
Okay, Iggy, I 100% agree with you. And here's the other thing. You and I have covered mediocre coaches on the Niners. Some of them were very nice people. Mike Singletary, I want to tell everybody, is a really good guy and someone I admire. But in terms of asking the big questions of football, I don't think Mike was capable of it. I don't think Chip Kelly is capable of it.
Actually, I would disagree. Chip Kelly does ask the big questions in football. His answers are just cockamamie.
Got it. He asks the right questions, but has crummy answers.
His answers are cockamamie. He's had the same answers for like 15 years, dude. Come on. But he is actually one of these guys who would question the very basic principles of what people take for granted. He's good at that. He just hasn't had anything new to say for freaking 15 years. No. He's just a guy.
There are big questions.
Right. No. Maybe he tried, but I don't think he has the capacity to even get far in that position.
He just got fired again.
Sorry, Jim.
Where was he, Iggy? With Mike Nolan? Where was
he? He was doing with Dallas. I'm telling you, he burned a lot of bridges by stabbing Harbaugh in the back, allegedly. So I don't know how many staffs he can work for because there's a lot of people who are loyal to, especially John Harbaugh over in Baltimore. I don't know. He might be done. Can't come back to the Niners.
Couldn't get near them, right?
No, absolutely not. One more thing about why I'm so interested to watch these games. To me, it's cool. Like, what the question is, like, what does it take to win the Super Bowl this year? because it's different every year, and the league changes, and what worked last year doesn't necessarily work this year, and it's nice. It's interesting to figure out like what did one team have to go through to make it all the way? What extraordinary job did they have to do? And maybe it's the Chiefs again this year, but I don't know what.
And the point is, we don't know the answer now, but we will know the answer.
Yeah, and then to go back and figure out why it was the way it was is great. It's so fascinating. Buffalo could win the Super Bowl this year. How interesting would that be?
Yeah.
Or Green Bay, I don't know. Be interesting. We got a question real quick before we move on from Jarvis. Starting a franchise, who would you choose to lead your team in their prime? Brady, Rodgers, Allen, or Mahomes? That's tough because
go slow.
Starting a franchise, who would you choose to lead your team in their prime? Brady, Rodgers, Allen, or Mahomes?
Oh, I know. Mahomes.
Yeah. Maybe Mahomes. He's only 25. He's great. Yeah, maybe Mahomes.
And one that was left out because you're not in it. Again, salary aside, Russell Wilson. Oh, yeah. I've said it. I love to watch him work.
It's interesting. I don't think it would be Brady. Brady was great, but Brady can't move. I think you can do more with Aaron Rodgers. And again, I think it's Aaron Rodgers' career. We may look at it differently. If he wins the Super Bowl in his old age, you go and look back and say maybe he was just held back by a terrible coach. And Belichick didn't have to deal with that. Brees didn't have to deal with that. Roethlisberger didn't have to deal with that. So it'll be interesting to see if Rodgers can change his legacy a little bit. He could win the Super Bowl this year. It'd be very interesting. And, physically, I think he can do everything Mahomes can do. Mahomes just gets to play for Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Iggy, for all four of those quarterbacks, there's a lot to do between today and winning a Super Bowl.
It's true.
They're going to go through the fires of hell.
And Rodgers has the least heart.
I agree.
The least heart. He's very talented, as talented as anyone ever. But so is Josh Allen. I mean, have you ever seen a guy like Josh Allen? As great as Mahomes is, this guy Josh Allen hurts defenders. When he scrambles and gets hit, I'm worried about the defensive back. I'm not really thinking about Josh Allen. But with Mahomes, I'm like, oh boy, is his head okay? For DeShaun Watson, like, is his shoulder okay? I don't know. Allen's pretty good too. Good question. Let's move on. The 49ers, one indispensable player. Do you want to do that?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Yeah, we were talking about this. If you were saying, and again, this is all speculative. It's what fans do, and we try.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, there are three options for who is the Niners' most indispensable player. One would be George Kittle. And look, when they didn't have him, they suffered. By the way, I don't include Garoppolo in this group of three. The other is whoever the left tackle is going to be.
Right.
Whoever the left tackle is going to be. And then the third is Fred Warner. And I settled on him. And I'll tell you why, Iggy. I think might be the best linebacker in the league.
He is.
He can cover receivers. He can stop the run. He's fast. He covers receivers. And everything I understand about him, he's brilliant. That
he is.
He is like almost at the level of Salah, understanding all the permutations of a play. And Iggy, does he call the plays?
He calls the plays. He gets the call. He relays it, and then when the offense does all the shifting, he makes all the checks and make sure that everyone is lined up correctly.
So he is a wonderful combination of a great player and a great thinker.
And there's also that kid Bosa who missed the season but was extremely dominant as a rookie. He was terrific.
Yes. Okay. I would include him in the conversation.
He's in the conversation.
Yeah, but for right now, I'm saying Fred Warner. Where are you?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this too, and I was gonna say George Kittle because he's such a good blocker and he can do everything. He's one of the best players in the league. But the more I think about it, the more I really feel like there is no indispensable player on a football team. The concept doesn't exist. Some players every player has a price, and some are more expensive than others. But if someone wanted to trade the 49ers 4 first-round picks for a middle linebacker, I would do that. As great as Fred Warner is. If someone wanted to trade the 49ers 2 first-round picks for Deebo Samuel, I would do that. Because as good as Deebo Samuel is, 1, he gets hurt, and 2, wide receivers and receivers in general, running backs, receivers, tight ends, they're replaceable. They're a lot of time they're as good as the quarterback they have. If you have Ben Roethlisberger, your wide receivers are going to be pretty good. You can draft them. You can churn them out. I think pretty much anyone can be replaced if you have the right price. I think, especially let's look at Kittle real quick. Great player, missed half the season last year. If some team wanted to offer you 2 first-round picks for George Kittle, you could get another tight end who's 22, and someone else. So
Iggy, you convinced me.
Yeah,
I think your answer is very subtle and right on. Thank you.
I don't think it works the same way in basketball. I think in basketball, if you have Stephen Curry, there's no price for Stephen Curry. You keep Stephen Curry. But in football, I mean, you see, like the Seahawks have Russell Wilson, and he's the best. There's no one better than Russell Wilson, but they can't win a Super Bowl. And they need to honestly think about, are we paying too much money to one guy? What if someone would give us 4 first-round picks for Russell Wilson? Would we be better? They got to do that math. Then maybe they would be, depending on who they draft. So it's an interesting league. And I think the Niners, there's no one, definitely not Jimmy. And, Nick Bosa, that could be a player that they really should trade in a couple of years, because when they give him his second contract, it's going to be like $30 million a year. He's just one guy who has torn both ACLs. Yeah.
I like your answer. I submit.
All right. Okay. All right.
I got one more topic.
Sciatica. Let's talk about it.
I want to talk about it. First of all, up until about a week ago, I heard the word, but I didn't even know what it is. So there's this sciatic nerve that I got it going down the left side of my body. Apparently, one of my discs is touching, impinging on my sciatic nerve. Boy, does it hurt. I mean, for certain nights, I only could sleep 3.5 hours because I couldn't even get in a comfortable position. So I went to my daughter-in-law, Carolyn Finnegan, who is a chiropractor deluxe in Oakland. She may be the best. And she put me on machines and did all kind of stuff, and it helped. And then my doctor gave me some prednisone, which the inflammation, helped the inflammation go down. But I don't know what the long term, what happens with this stuff. But it made me think some thoughts. I'm 75, so I'm an old man. Last year I had gout. Who the hell ever gets gout? And then you remember
it was my fault. It was definitely my fault. You were like, I just want to lose 10 pounds. I was like, oh, you should go on the keto diet. I've been doing it. All you got to do is eat a ton of meat. It'll be great. 3 weeks later, gout. I was like, oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, because my uric acid went up and it's terrible. And then now I got sciatica. And these are things I didn't even know what they were. You read about them. Someone in a book had gout or sciatica, and you think, what the hell is that? I got to tell you. So what I realized is part of the humiliation of being an old person is you begin to get these things that you don't even know what they are. And God knows what comes next. But then there's a deeper level. Because I'm old, you think about life in a different way. When you're young, you look ahead. Like Iggy, you look ahead. Where am I going to end up? What's my next job going to be? What's my next adventure going to be? I don't really think about adventures anymore. I think about not having sciatica and having tea with my wife at 3 p.m. And that makes me very happy. And I realize now, instead of looking ahead, which I do, but there's much more to look back on than look ahead. And I look back on my life and I ask questions like, have I led the life I wanted to lead? Yes. Have I had a happy life? Most definitely. Are there things I would do differently? Yes, absolutely. Was I a good guy? And that's the tough one. I think I'm in general a good guy. I'm a good husband and a good father, but I was a real jerk. Like maybe most people are when they're younger. I mean, through my 30s, I was difficult, self-centered, cruel at times, really insensitive. And what I'd like to do is, in Batman, he puts up the bat signal over Gotham.
Yeah.
I'd like to put out the Lowell signal over America and write, I'm sorry.
It's tough. I know what you mean. It's tough to know that even though you feel like you've become the person you want to be and you're a good person now, that there's a handful or more people in the world who really don't like you. And right,
not to like me.
Because you wronged them. And it's tough to know that I got names at the top of my I can name right now people I wronged in my past, I feel bad about and I think about from time to time. And it's funny, you could even reach out and try to say something nice and I don't think they really want to hear from you. There's nothing you can really say. There's nothing you can really do. It's just something you got to live with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know how that feeling is. Actually, I've been thinking about that recently. And it's a weird feeling. Yeah. There was one person from high school who I wronged in a way. And I tried to reach out recently and the person was nonplussed to hear from me. I was like, yep. There's nothing I can say. There's nothing. I can't be charming. I can't apologize again. It's just something I got to live with. So I wasn't the worst person in the world. I just ruined friendship, and that was on me. So what are you gonna do?
So you know what I'm feeling, and I feel it. I feel it now. Again, I'm a very happy person, and I'm a very fulfilled person. But I have regret. I have remorse. I have guilt, and I just have to live with it. And if anybody,
I let you off the hook though.
If anybody's watching this. And I wronged you, and I'm sorry.
Me too.
It all came from being 75 and having gout and sciatica. It really, brings you down to earth.
Did you feel like it was karma from the heavens above?
No, I feel like it's getting old.
Yeah,
it's getting old.
As long as it just happens, it's inevitable.
It's a bitch.
It's a
pisser. It's a bitch.
Well, I should be so lucky one day. Hey, Grant, would you rather trade 4 first-round picks and some players for DeShaun Watson or first and second-round picks with players for DeShaun Watson? I'd rather pick Dak. I don't know, man. I wouldn't. I'm the Billy Bean of football analysts. I feel like one guy isn't going to really change your team. If you happen to draft a great player and he's on a reasonable contract, great. But just trading everything away for one guy, you just turn into the team that player left. You just be the Texans. So I don't know.
And I would also add, I would have lots of questions about him. I mean, is he going to come in and think he's the general manager?
He might after 1 year be like, you know what, John Lynch has to go.
Yeah.
You know what, Kyle, I don't like your quarterback coach. Say what you want about Jimmy Garoppolo maybe not playing through injuries or not being available. He never does stuff like that.
No.
If he has any grievances, we don't hear about it. And if he wants off the Niners, we don't know. And he could have every reason to go off. So I just feel like I don't know if DeShaun Watson's a diva. And the thing about that one guy, Easterby, makes me feel like he's justified. But I'd like to know if he is a diva because he's not entitled to pick the coach. He's not. It's a chain of command in football. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Chain of command. Anyway, he's standing up again, guys. We're 50 minutes in. Dad, we gotta wrap this up. What do you say?
I'm happy to accommodate.
He's happy to accommodate. Well,
I'm trying to rewrite wrongs.
Horatio says, who was your role model growing up?
Who's he asking?
You.
My father, Emmanuel Milton Cohn, Mickey, we called him. My father was, oh God, I love my dad. My father was a lawyer. He didn't make a lot of money. We lived in a little apartment in Brooklyn that Iggy knew. He worked down by Wall Street, but he didn't have those big clients. My dad was partly blind. He had such dignity. He was so moral. He was so forthright. He taught me how to be, not that I always could pull it off, how to be a good person in the world. And he loved me. He called me Lowly. And every day of my life that we were together, he gave me a kiss. Even when I saw him 3 weeks before he died, he was in a hospital. I come in to cover the Niners playing the Giants, and he was in a hospital in Brooklyn. We didn't know he was going to die, and we kissed. And then I had to leave and go, to a hotel in Newark, and that was the last time I saw my dad.
Wow. So he gave you your moral compass.
No question.
Right.
Now, my mother, of course, did as well.
Of course.
Well, but maybe, he was my dad and I was a boy. Maybe my sister got a little bit, my mother, Eve, was phenomenal. And I got my literary sensibility, my humor, maybe my toughness from your grandma, from Eva. But, a boy, this boy modeled after his dad.
Sure. I guess I did too. Even though I met your dad, my grandpa, but I don't remember him. I was 9 months old.
9 months old when he died.
Yeah, that's right. Final question, Horatio. I can't find it, but Horatio wanted to say, wanted to ask, Dad, who's the greatest boxer of all time?
Oh, there's no question. Sugar Ray Robinson. It's not even a debate.
Horatio is probably 16 years old. I don't know if he's ever heard of Sugar Ray Robinson. So tell him real quick who Sugar Ray Robinson was.
He was a 5-time middleweight champion. He dominated boxing in the 40s and 50s into the 60s. Now, why was he better than Muhammad Ali? Okay, different weight classes. Middleweight is 160. Heavyweight is unlimited. So Muhammad Ali was a much bigger man, and had they fought, Muhammad Ali would have beat him because he would have been much bigger. So in boxing, you call it pound for pound. If you equal them out. Muhammad Ali was a great boxer. He had a great jab. He was really fast.
Great chin.
Great chin.
Yeah.
What Ray Robinson had all of that. Plus, he hit hard for the weight. Ray Robinson was a one-punch knockout guy. Left or right hand. Yeah. Left or right hand. Muhammad Ali was certainly not. He would knock you out, but he would take him 35 punches to do it. Plus, people don't understand this, but Iggy does, because he studied a lot of boxing with me. As great as Ali was, he was not a great defensive fighter.
No.
He had speed when he was younger, and he could pull away from punches. But when he slowed down, as every athlete does, he was available, especially for left hooks, because he didn't know how to get under them.
Yeah, watch that first fight against Frazier.
And Ray Robinson knew how to defend himself. He was a much better defensive fighter. So not only was Ray Robinson the best fighter, in my opinion, who ever lived, but no one's even close.
If you go back and watch Ray Robinson fights on YouTube, he just, when it's time to beat a guy, he opens up and just has these extremely violent combinations. And it's like he'll knock a guy out in the first round, second round. He's the most violent middleweight I've ever seen. Really hits hard.
There's a great fight between him and former middleweight champion Rocky Graziano, who was a good fighter and a good guy. And I think it's in the first round. Graziano knocks him down. He gets up. He knocks out Graziano within the next 20 seconds. You can get it on YouTube. It's like 2 minutes. It's like it's all you needed to know.
Yeah. So that's fun. If you want to go back and watch black and white fights, go watch Sugar Ray Robinson. He's a lot of fun. I like watching Sugar Ray Leonard as well. Those are in better quality on YouTube, but Sugar Ray Leonard can't hit like that. He was much smaller than Sugar Ray, right? He's more like a welter.
So he was 147. Ray was 160. Was taller, bigger. Yeah. He had everything. Look, Sugar Ray Leonard was a great fighter.
He's fun to watch.
Courage, and he was a finisher.
Quick.
Everything. Yeah. But Ray Robinson was better.
Yes. So good question. Hold on, last one, and then we're gonna let Sciatica go. Dad, does Lowell have a single most memorable sports moment? Big lots of long line.
Boy, that is so interesting. See, for me, I was at the No Mas fight, Iggy.
Yeah,
I was at the fight where Ray Leonard in New Orleans, where Duran quit. That was unbelievable. So I probably have 35 more, okay?
Yeah.
But that No Mas fight was pretty famous.
Yeah, and you were at the catch game. You were at all the greatest 49er games, but what people don't realize about you is that
And you know what, Iggy? Now that you mention it, the catch, because you know what, Iggy? It changed football.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Iggy, thanks for bringing that up. As much as the No Mas, which was unbelievable, but this was a local story, and it changed football, and it involved Joe Montana and Dwight Clark, and I was there. So that's it.
Right. And you knew them before they were legends. You knew them when they were normal guys.
I knew them when they were guys.
Right. Yeah. Where were you when the catch happened?
I was in the press box sitting next to Ira Miller.
Oh, wow.
At Candlestick.
Wow. Interesting. Well, that's a good show. Dad, thank you for soldiering through this one. I hope your back feels better soon.
Thank you. And everybody, thank you so much. And thanks for putting up with me. This was really enjoyable today.
Absolutely. I like the boxing questions at the end. You guys can always feel free to throw in some boxing questions if you want to talk at the end. Guys, we'll be back next week. See you soon.